Hey, Reese, thanks for joining me for lunch. We're at the new outdoor classroom cafe at Woodward Park. It's an innovative program for the Tulsa Garden Center. But check out this menu.
This is a nice place, Brian.
Thank you. We're actually, this is the old carriage house just across from the mansion. But look at this. They have food that, grilled tacos. And then they have food that we can, and all these spices. We can take a whole tilapia to go. Oh, here's our waiter. Let's ask him some questions.
Good evening, gentlemen. Can I take your order?
Well, hello there. So I have a question for you. The tagline up there says everything picked and harvested to order. Tell me about this salad. Is this a organic salad?
Of course, it's organic in every sense and locally produced and raised.
Where's it produced?
Right here at the Tulsa Garden Center across from the Sneddon Mansion in this laundry room.
Wait a minute, you just said it's in a laundry room?
Yes, sir.
So, okay. But I know Woodward Park's 44 acres. It's Old Creek allotment territory. Did you cut down all the oak trees and plow the fields? It has to fertilize the vegetables. Then Oklahoma, you have pesticides. Did you do all that? Is that where my salad's coming from?
No, sir. It's all raised in an aquaponics system in the laundry room right near us.
In the laundry room. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. So I see we have a grilled fish, and I see it's tilapia. Tilapia is a tropical fish. Comes from Latin America. So did you have that flown in frozen?
No, sir. That was raised here as well.
Wow. But it still gets cold outside. So how did that, I mean, it likes warm water. How were you able to do that?
Right. Well, typically tilapia are seasonal, but we're able to raise them year-round in our aquaponics system through heaters in a controlled environment.
Okay, what can you tell me about this fish that I want to order? I mean, do you have a dossier on this fish?
Well, of course. I have a file right here, all about the fish.
Oh my gosh. You have a file? Reese, the fish's name is Colin. Wait a minute. I have a picture of Reese holding the tilapia, and that looks like where the ironing board was in the old laundry room at the carriage house. This is totally amazing. Tell you what, we need to go see this farm, quote unquote farm. Follow me.
Of course.
Let's do this.
I'm Brian Bovard, and I'm the program director for the outdoor classroom program at Woodward Park. It's a program of the Tulsa Garden Center. We create a 5-hour program for 5th graders, teaching them STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, throughout the 44 acres of Woodward Park. I want to invite my good friend Reese Hundley in. He works for Symbiotic Aquaponics. And Reese, before you take us on a deep dive of aquaponics, tell us a little bit about your background and what got you to this point.
Okay, so I grew up with a lot of opportunities to go out into nature with my family. I did a lot of camping. I had a really great STEM environment growing up, and so I was always interested in the environment. I went to Oklahoma State University, studied biosystems engineering. My specialty is water systems. I've taught quite a bit with Brian, and now I get to do it full-time as an aquaponics expert. And I get to work with people every day. I work with a lot of students. So teaching is my passion. I come from a long line of teachers, and we love aquaponics. So we're going to talk about that.
Fantastic. So I've invited the right person to tell us everything about aquaponics. But to our original cafe scene, let's explore this mysterious 100-year-old laundry room of the Sneddon Mansion. Reese, take us on a deep dive.
All right, let's go to the farm. All right, so we are in the grow room. What we're going to first talk about is a global challenge that we're trying to address. Humanity has, for thousands of years, overcome challenges. And our ancestors are just as smart as us and just as clever. And so we've overcome great challenges to make our lives safer, to have security with our food, to be more sustainable, to have joy in living. And so now we are looking ahead And there's actually a great organization, the National Academy of Engineers, has actually pointed out 14 grand challenges that the next generation are going to have to face. And there are going to be some other challenges ahead as well that we don't anticipate. But one of these grand challenges is managing the nitrogen cycle. And so that's what we're talking about today. The nitrogen cycle globally has become out of balance. And this is a natural process. Nitrogen is everywhere. And we're very much dependent on nitrogen. Brian.
Well, because at the 44 acres, right over here, we have the Linnaeus Teaching Garden, we have a conservatory, the Arboretum, we have the Rose Garden, and all the gardens of Woodward Park. Nitrogen is absolutely critical to everything at Woodward Park for living. And this is what we teach fifth graders when they come out and learn outdoor classroom in the science technology. So this is great that we're learning more about nitrogen today. So carry on.
Yeah, so nitrogen, there's a cycle associated with nitrogen, just lots of cycles in nature and throughout the earth. Now, nitrogen is key for plants to make food. And so we want to study this relationship, this phenomenon in nature, how nitrogen is used to make food for humans and all life on the planet. So plants are key here. Now, throughout history, we have grown food, or as technologies have become more advanced, and it's key for our survival. But human practices throughout the world for achieving the needs for humans has actually caused this cycle to become out of balance through the use of fertilizers, which have made it possible to feed the world. But globally, we've noticed, and the National Academy of Engineers have noticed, that this process has become out of balance. And so there are excess nutrients in our water supplies due to mostly agriculture and human practices. And so what we need to explore, maybe we can get our heads together on how can we overcome these challenges. I bet if we can get our heads together, each and every one of us can play a role to address this challenge that will be necessary for us to have a sustainable future, food security, joy of living. And so this is a grand challenge that we will have to face globally.
Okay, so when I was asking our waiter on the wonderful fresh salad that he recommended, I said, did you have to plow the fields? Did you have to add fertilizer? And of course, how do you get rid of pests in Oklahoma? So we're in the laundry room. What do I have here and what's going on?
Okay, so right here is an aquaponics system. And at its core, it is managing the nitrogen cycle. That is how it all works. And so really the secret to this type of farming is bacteria. Bacteria are decomposers. And they're actually, if we look at a food pyramid, they're the base of that food pyramid. They're below the producers, which are our plants. So if we can focus on these bacteria and we can create an environment that's going to be really good for those bacteria. These bacteria are everywhere and they're natural and they're really good. In fact, all of the life depends on these bacteria.
What are the bacteria doing in an aquaponics system? So I have them. What's their role?
Right. So bacteria live throughout the system. They live in the rock primarily. And so if we look at this diagram over here, the process of aquaponics is, we can start with the fish here. We feed our fish and they respirate, they poop in the water, and that creates ammonia. It's poop. Even all animals produce ammonia whenever they're excreting wastes. And so that ammonia, if we can clean it out, we can create an environment for bacteria to thrive, as well as plants and fish to thrive. And so as the ammonia travels up into our grow bed, where the rocks are, naturally occurring bacteria live all over these rocks, such as Nitrosomonas, and they take that ammonia and they turn it into nitrites, and then Nitrobacter and Nitrospira, which are natural bacteria, they're aerobic bacteria, which means they love oxygen. They turn the nitrite into nitrates. And so ammonia and nitrite are actually toxic to the water. We want to clean that out. We want to get rid of it and turn it into a nitrogen compound that is not going to harm the fish if it recirculates back to the fish.
Hold on a second. you keep saying that our plants are growing in rock, and I know I'm jumping a little ahead of the video. What do you mean?
Yeah,
Why don't they need soil?
So actually plants don't need soil to grow. They do need a substrate to grow in, something that their roots can hold on to.
Oh, like a habitat.
Yeah, like a habitat.
A structure,
Yeah.
shelter. Okay.
And I mentioned that this environment, it works even better if we have lots of oxygen and nutrients for these bacteria.
Okay, so a lot of oxygen can be stored in the rock. It also seems like the water would flow pretty well through this.
Right. Water flows well with it. In fact, our grow beds are flooding and draining, so that creates an environment that's going to be perfect for these bacteria that we want to raise. And they're very efficient at breaking down waste. In fact, these are similar bacteria that are in our sewage treatment plants as well that clean our waste.
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on in the, let's recap real quick what the National Academy of Engineers want you to solve with the nitrogen cycle.
Okay, so if we can find ways to manage nutrients, if we can manage our waste, maybe even recycle our waste, such as like in this scenario, where we're moving nutrients through this natural ecosystem and pulling them out with plants. Like I said, there's this phenomenon in nature where plants are really great as a key role and have a key role to play in the nitrogen cycle. And so we can extract those nutrients, the nitrates, the nitrites, the ammonia, while producing food. And as a result, we can grow a protein source as well as lots of different produce, lots of different plants, and be able to feed people simultaneously.
Well, during the COVID, all the salons were shut down, so I decided I would flip off a little bit of the basil, and I'll have you tell me, do I just need to eat it now, or can it grow somewhere else? I'll save this. Remember, I have it.
Great. Yeah.
What else do you want to talk?
Yeah, so we can grow lots of different plants. We can grow lots of different fish. The most popular fish is from a 3-inch fingerling to a 1.5-pound male adult in 6 months. Fish are by far the most efficient animal globally, or livestock globally. When you're looking at feed conversion rates, how many pounds of feed do I have to feed this animal to get a pound of meat? Fish are almost 100% efficient at that compared to other types of livestock. That's significant. So if we're looking at feeding the world and managing nitrogen, this is a pretty smart idea. In fact, we've learned from ancient civilizations kind of how this all works, but we've modernized it with lots of innovative technologies to make it really easy.
Okay, we're in the 100-year-old laundry room of the Snedden Mansion. We've got this wonderful aquaponics system. Reese built it, installed it, designed it. Let's go through a real quick thing. We got students watching. What's this represent?
So that would be our energy source. Just like in nature, we need light, and it's the full light spectrum, just like the sun. And so we can create an environment that's going to be perfect for growing year-round with this type of energy source.
Okay, now I'm going to put a little pause in here. So answer this at home first, and I'll tell you the answer. Are these producers or consumers?
Those are producers. I'm a consumer.
And so our fish are consumers.
They are.
And we need all of this in order to create a balance, because my producers will take out the toxic ammonia, and then the fish get fresh water back.
That's right. So it's a continuous process.
Okay. Now I'm going to take my clipping with me, but can we do this in a classroom or at home?
We can do it anywhere. We can do small scale all the way up to feeding large populations in an urban environment. Let's go check this out.
Excellent. Hey, while we're on our way out, check out what we harvested. We had these for 2 tilapia that just came from this tank that were on the menu. And Dylan, our IT guy at the Tulsa Garden Center, and his wife Elena will be cooking them up tonight. So
awesome.
Follow us.
All right, here we go. So this shows another scale aquaponics system. It works very similar to a system that we could actually grow a lot of food out of in the laundry room. This system is actually specifically designed for educational purposes. And so right here is another example of how it could be set up and how it works. And so we have our grow bed right here. It's full of rock. We'll talk about that more in a second, but we also have a fish tank down here.
Oh, I see my goldfish. They're very happy. I think they're hungry too.
Yeah, so again, the whole process is where we feed our fish down below. They poop in the water. That is a nitrogen compound, ammonia. And then we got to give it energy to go up. So it goes through a filter system, kind of like that in there. And this is like a screen that you can just wash off. And once it leaves the filter system, it goes into the grow bed where the majority of the plant action and the bacteria happen. And so here in this grow bed, we have expanded shale. This is basically clay, which we have a lot of in Oklahoma. One cool thing about this setup is this never has to be replaced. For example, if we were growing in soil in a storm, just like we experienced last night, you know, if there's no cover on that soil, it can erode. And even if there's chemicals on that soil, it can go into our streams, our lakes where we get most of our water. And it takes between 200 to 1,000 years for an inch of soil to form. And so in comparison to soil-based agriculture, this could be a good alternative because we can grow faster and create a great environment for plants, but we also do not have to wait on soil to reform if we lose it in a big storm.
Wait, okay. So when I plow the field and it's taken up to 1,000 years to produce just an inch of soil, and I do get a gully washer, it all runs down the river. What have I been doing to my field then? I've been depleting it of all its nutrient source?
Yeah, so those nutrients will attach to those particles on the soil and they'll flush downstream. And one negative outcome to that is those nutrients will then be in our water. Not only do we lose the capacity of our water in our lakes where we get a lot of our drinking water here in Tulsa, but also that water can become contaminated and have algae blooms and make it even where we can't swim in the water and it's not safe to drink from. And so this is a great way to address more sustainable practices in farming where we don't have that runoff into the environment and we can protect our resources. And so here we can grow plants. We have a Swiss chard here. How long has this been growing in here?
The Swiss chard's been in here only about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And it came up fairly quick.
Yeah, we can grow lots of different species of plants. Here is a basil. One neat thing about basil or lots of other plants is we can actually clone them. And so it's really easy to plant in this grow bed. If I wanted to clone it, I could just take a cutting. This works for tomatoes and lots of other crops as well. And I can actually make a little spot for it and cover it up. And
you want to pull one out and
sure,
see what
yeah.
happened? They've been in here about 2 weeks.
So this is a clone after about 2 weeks.
Look at that. Okay.
Look at those roots. That's incredible.
We had the same thing with this stem, and that's been in the aquaponics system for 2 weeks. And it's because the DNA exists in the stem to teach the plant how to grow food. Not all plants can be cloned.
That's
what do I have?
Fascinating.
And it's growing in solid rock. I love this.
Yeah, and I just planted it just by sticking it right back in there.
Now, this one has only been in about 10 days. It came up faster than I thought it would. This is lettuce. Now, of course, what we'll do is we'll thin it out so that we can actually grow a full lettuce plant. So show me how do you plant in rock?
Yeah, and what's really neat here is one powerful thing about aquaponics is in this much space, we can propagate or germinate thousands of plants in a very small amount of space. That's been a really great business model that we've worked with schools like FFA programs, where in a couple of weeks we can go from a seed to a small seedling. We can harden it off over a couple more weeks, which basically means expose it gently to the outdoors. And then basically from a month from planting seed to pulling them or taking them out in pots, you can put them in raised bed gardens. And so we can propagate lots of different species of plants. We can do greens, we can do herbs, we can do fruiting crops like tomatoes, cucumbers. We can even do rooting crops like carrots. And even our friends over at Redlands Community College have experimented with grapes. What was crazy is over the past couple of years, they've had 6 harvests of grapes And so that's pretty incredible that we can grow so many different types of crops that could feed people.
So this is how we were able to justify our outdoor classroom cafe, having all of this grown fresh, picked to order. Show me, what are you going to plant here? And why is this important?
Yeah,
it looks
so
like a flower.
We also have flowers. We can grow ornamental crops. We can grow flowers. I know our friends over at A New Leaf are growing milkweed. And those milkweed are flowering right now. They grow very well.
Why do we grow milkweed? Why do we grow chamomile?
Yeah, so our pollinators are actually key to supporting our food system. We need to protect our pollinators so that we can continue to have food.
What's a pollinator?
A pollinator could be a bee, insects. It could also be birds. And they're key for being part of the process for plants to reproduce.
Well, how much of our food supply needs to be pollinated?
I don't remember off the top of my head. 60% of our food supply requires a pollinator.
So this is all very critical to not only plant the vegetables, but also plant things that help for pollination and help feed butterflies and the bees, especially when they come through Oklahoma starting in May.
Sure thing. And by nature, this is organic. And so because we are raising a natural ecosystem and raising fish, we cannot use pesticides or herbicides. We have to be very clean in the way that we plant food. And so just a quick demonstration how I could plant seed. These seed are tiny, tiny, tiny. I could actually just get a good view of that. I'm going to just tear the top off. And if I can open it up, kind of just put it right in. And then disturb the surface a little bit. That's it. That's all you have to do to plant.
Okay, before we go back to the table, if I wanted to grow all this in a field, I get an irrigation ditch, irrigation system, and a lot of water. But I'm growing everything that would normally grow in a garden. How much less water does this use? I don't see a sprinkler system.
Yeah, because we're recycling this water continuously, typically with an aquaponics system like this, we're using about 5% of the amount of water that we would on a
5%?
5% that we would use on like a soil-based farm. And so this is a very clean way of growing food.
What's a fraction? We got math students in our audience.
5%, that would be
20th?
A 20th of a percent.
Wow.
Or a 20th would be the fraction.
Okay, and water is actually more precious than crude oil in this world.
Yes, and it'll be more so as we get older as well.
Okay, so you're not plowing up the fields. You're using natural fertilizer from our goldfish down below. You're using only 5% of the water in order to produce the same crop. And you're doing it inside now a 100-year-old carriage house at the Tulsa Garden Center.
Yeah, and most of the global population lives in urban environments. So this is a great way to access fresh produce year-round in a controlled environment. And we can grow a lot more food with less resources. So let's go back to this, this cafe.
Okay, real quick though. So outdoor classroom caters to fifth grade students. We mostly pull them from schools in West, North, and East Tulsa where there's a STEM inequity. In other words, they don't have enthusiastic people like Reese coming in all the time. So we bring the students here. So if you're a fifth grader or a fifth grade teacher, go to the TulsaGardenCenter.com and click the Learn button and learn more about outdoor classroom. Let's go back to the table.
Awesome.
Well, while we're sitting down, so I just did my plug for outdoor classroom at TulsaGardenCenter.com. Reese, how do they find out more about aquaponics and the things that your company is doing and maybe how to score a t-shirt?
Yeah, so Symbiotic Aquaponic is an Oklahoma-based company. You can check us out at symbioticaquaponic.com. We have a great Facebook page as well. We do a lot of outreach and education. Some just closing comments. We all have the power to be catalysts for a positive change. And so as we're more knowledgeable, if you find value in learning more about our food and where it comes from and how it comes to the table, you actually are having the power to support change in a positive way. So sustainable farming, which is providing for today while leaving for tomorrow, we can actually vote with our dollars when we order to support local farmers and practices that are going to be sustainable.
Then come to Outdoor Classroom to learn science, technology, engineering, and math where it naturally occurs.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.